Today, we're diving into an event so catastrophic, it didn't just cause unimaginable loss, it completely re-engineered the world we live in. This is the story of the Black Death, not just as a tragedy, but as one of the most powerful turning points in all of human history.
So to wrap your head around the sheer scale of this thing, just start with this one number: 50%. In just a few absolutely terrifying years in the mid-14th century, the Black Death is thought to have killed as much as half the entire population of Europe. We're talking up to 50 million people gone.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the world that was brought to its knees. Then we'll unmask the tiny killer that was responsible. We're going to trace its unstoppable march across the globe, see the absolute chaos it caused. And then, and this is the really interesting part, we'll explore the surprising new world that rose from the ashes.
Okay, so picture the mid-1300s. Europe is bustling, its population is at an all-time high, and then, out of nowhere, this invisible enemy arrives. Entire cities become ghost towns. The world basically just stopped, completely overwhelmed by something it couldn't see, fight, or even understand.
You know, for hundreds of years, nobody had a clue what caused all this devastation. When you're facing that level of death, you get desperate for answers, and that uncertainty, it bred this incredible fear, which, as we're about to see, led people to look for someone, or something, to blame.
So what was it really? Was God punishing humanity? Was there some kind of poison in the air? Miasma, they called it? Or was it something far more sinister, the work of other people? For centuries, these were the leading theories. But the real culprit? Well, it was much smaller and way, way deadlier.
Meet the killer, a bacterium called Yersinia pestis. This tiny organism, usually carried by fleas on rats, could absolutely ravage a human body in just a few days. And once it got into a person's lungs, it could spread just by them breathing on someone else. It was terrifyingly efficient. And what's so cool is how we finally cracked this ancient case. The proof wasn't in some dusty old book. Nope, it was modern science. Researchers were able to pull tiny fragments of ancient DNA from the teeth of skeletons found in plague pits. And right there, they found it, the genetic fingerprint of Yersinia pestis. Case closed.
Okay, so we've got our culprit. Now let's follow the trail. How did this thing go from a local outbreak to a pandemic that literally changed the course of history?
Well, the plague basically traveled along the highways of the medieval world, the trade routes. It seems to have started in Central Asia in the 1330s. Then it hitched a ride along the Silk Road. By 1347, it hits a port on the Black Sea. From there, rats and their infected fleas became unknowing stowaways on Italian trading ships, carrying the plague right into the heart of Europe. It spread faster than news could travel, wiping out towns before they even knew what was coming for them.
The effect on people was, and there's really no other word for it, apocalyptic. The plague didn't just kill, it ripped the very fabric of society apart. Laws were ignored, family bonds broke, and a wave of fear and confusion just washed over everything. And the disease itself was just horrifying. The most common version was bubonic, which caused these agonizing swellings called buboes that had up to an 80% mortality rate. Then there was the pneumonic form, which got in your lungs, spread through the air, and killed over 90% of the people it infected. But the deadliest was septicemic. It infected the blood directly, killing you so fast it was nearly 100% fatal.
And you can really see the deep psychological scar this left on people in their art. A whole new theme popped up called the Danse Macabre, the Dance of Death. You'd see these paintings of skeletons dancing away with everybody, from kings and popes to farmers and kids. The message was loud and clear. Death comes for everyone. It's the great equalizer.
The old economy was completely wrecked too. This quote from an English law passed right in the middle of it says it all. With so many workers dead, the ones who survived suddenly had all the power. They could demand more money and better treatment, which sent a massive shockwave through the whole feudal system.
In all this terror and confusion, that fear boiled over into hate. People were desperate for someone to blame, and they found a scapegoat. Horrible, completely false rumors started spreading that Jewish communities were poisoning the wells. It didn't matter that Jewish people were dying from the plague just like everyone else. These lies led to just horrific, violent massacres across the continent.
But this is where the story takes this incredible, crucial turn. Yes, the Black Death was an absolute disaster. But from the ruins of that old world, something new started to grow. something profoundly and, in a lot of ways, unexpectedly different.
Just look at this side by side. Before the plague, you had this rigid feudal system. Tons of serfs, basically tied to the land with no power. After the plague, everything's flipped on its head. There's a massive labor shortage, so suddenly workers can demand higher wages. The old system of serfdom starts to crumble, and for the first time, common people had a real shot at moving up in the world.
The plague also forced people to get smart about public health fast. In 1377, the port city of Ragusa started telling incoming ships they had to wait offshore for 40 days, or quarantino in Italian, to make sure they weren't carrying the disease. And yep, that's where we get the word quarantine. It's a practice born from this disaster that we still use all the time today.
But the changes weren't just social. They might actually be in our DNA. Modern scientists think the Black Death acted like a massive evolutionary event. People who just happened to have genes that made them more resistant to the plague were more likely to survive and pass those genes on. So as this scientist says, the plague didn't just change history, it might have literally changed us.
And that leaves us with this huge, kind of mind-bending question. The Black Death was a catastrophe on a scale that's hard to even imagine. But in destroying that old world, it also, completely unintentionally, cleared the way for a new one to be built. It's this chilling reminder that sometimes destruction and creation are two sides of the very same coin.
If you enjoyed this journey through history, do me a favor and give this a like. It really helps the channel grow. And make sure you subscribe for more incredible stories from our past. Oh, and before you go, let me know in the comments what piece of history we should dive into next. Thanks for watching.